Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the KB Show. I'm joined by Katy and Dean. Thank you for coming in, guys. How are we?
Great.
Yeah, really
Lovely.
good.
Ready to go? Awesome. So these guys are from the Power of Breath. Obviously, you do your yoga stuff as well. Dean, professional lifeguard. Power of Breath. How did the Power of Breath come about?
Great question. I guess, I was an asthmatic as a child. I was hospitalised with asthma as a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
And from there, I was always connected with my breath. Intuitively, I knew or felt that I had to swim to regulate my breathing.
Okay, that's interesting.
For me to be able to play footy with my mates. If I wasn't swimming, there was no regulation of my breath, and I used to, couldn't huff and puff and literally couldn't run around the block. Whereas when I was swimming training, I would potentially win the cross country at school. So it was an idle day for me when I was swimming training.
Yep.
Fast forward, 10, 15 years, I started doing yoga because I could barely touch my knees, let alone my toes.
Yep.
And then started.
Is that where you met this one?
That is where we met and fell in love. And I found yoga giving me what swimming was giving me. The regulated slow nasal breathing started to give me what I was getting from swimming.
Yeah.
Fascinating journey. Potentially gave me a career as a lifeguard, and possibly had some sort of negative side effects as well. The swimming is a mouth breathing exercise, and as functional breathing coaches now, we're really passionate about sort of mouth versus nasal breathing, as you know, because you came along and
yes,
did a course the other
definitely.
week.
To give you guys a bit of context, I went to the Power of Breath workshop, I suppose you call it. Probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago now, which was amazing. Learnt a lot. Now doing the tape over the mouth when we're sleeping, and that really actually helps. So I wanted to get you guys on just to share the story. A little bit about you, Katy. How do you form into this?
Yeah,
Obviously,
and I'm excited about
teacher.
you being able to touch your toes at some point.
I can touch my toes. I just can't pancake. That's all. I can't get this.
His child's pose, his bum's very high.
It's the split part for me. It's the split part. I'm okay forward and back with the split part.
That's true. So I've always been very conscious of breath because of yoga. I don't know whether I was prior to that, but I only really applied it to yoga and to when I was trying to control emotional experiences. So, being conscious that I can calm my nervous system by using slow breathing. But interestingly, when I used to run and I was doing yoga at the same time, I wasn't even aware of how I was breathing when I was running or doing any type of other exercise.
Yeah, as most people aren't.
No, so I wasn't really conscious of it in any other part of my life. I think I'm lucky that I'm a nasal breather because habitually doing so much yoga, I've learned how to nasally breathe, and so I've been very fortunate that I think habitually I've been leaning towards that. But when Dean started studying with Wim Hof, and I'm sure he'll tell you the incredible stories that he has about training with him, but we started to become much more interested in the absolute power that it has functionally over all the other aspects of our life for health, like sleep, being able to, be awake and feel clear during the day, performance, so exercise. And, and in general health, we've found that just by using nasal breathing as a tool, we're able just to feel much better in every aspect of our life. So when Dean started studying with Wim, we became more aware of it. We used to notice people when we travelled on planes falling asleep with their mouth open. And
catching flies.
Yeah, catching flies. The noise that people make when they mouth breathe, the way they hold themselves, we just became more aware of it. And then Dean started studying with an incredible teacher called Patrick McEwen. And once we started learning a little bit more about the science behind it, and Dean's very good at explaining that simply, it became an absolute passion for us. We saw how transformational it was with the people that we were working with. It was cool.
Yeah.
Well, I guess Katy identified my sleep apnea, which I was completely unaware that I had. Fascinating to sort of, like as you're doing now, experiment with mouth taping and try and improve the functionality of your sleep.
Yeah. Well, I spoke to Katy, we both track our sleep Oura Ring. And it's probably one of the best 2 scores I've had. It was obviously it wasn't the best, but that was during the week as well. And usually I don't get in the 80s during the week. I just don't get enough sleep time. But I was in the 80s And for you guys at home, it's like a score out of 100. So 80 is pretty decent. But yeah, I was never getting into the 80s during the week, which was pretty impressive. And then the next night I didn't do it, and I told you, and I had the worst sleep ever. I was like in the 50s, 60s. I was like,
it makes me feel good when I'm right. I like it. Yeah.
So just explain to the people, like obviously breathing, everyone does breathing. I think for the common sort of listeners that we'll get, kind of understand what is actually breathing. How do you breathe properly? And what's the difference between, as you're talking about, mouth breathing and identifying these things? If you could sort of wrap it up.
Right, well, we can talk a little bit about why mouth breathing is probably detrimental. That's
Sure.
That's the easiest way to So if we start with
this is functional breathing.
Yeah.
Breath work is this broad term, and it's a little bit undefined. And people think of Wim Hof, and people think of yoga stuff. But yeah, functional breathing is what we're going to talk about now.
Yeah.
And Katy, what were you saying? I just wanted to put that label on it, because that's an important part of what we do. Whilst we do teach Wim Hof and other techniques, the functional breathing is how people are breathing all day, every day.
Yeah. Okay.
And like over a 24-hour period, people breathe up to 25,000 times a day. So if we can improve that by 1 or even 10%, we're getting significant improvement to their life.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, so just in terms of, a lot of people don't know how they breathe, but we can make the assumption that about 50% of people breathe dysfunctionally, and that would, in some areas of their life, and that would suggest that they're using their mouth to breathe more than they would their nose, which would suggest, and these are all sort of, very loose, you would have to work with people on an individual basis, but would suggest that they're not utilising their diaphragm, which is their breathing muscle, to breathe. So when you breathe through your mouth, if you're not using your diaphragm, you tend to hold your body in certain tense positions, right? You would use your accessory respiratory muscles, which are your shoulders, your neck. There's some hunching.
Yeah, you sort of see those people overactivated.
Well, for the people listening, they can do it right now.
Yeah.
And it's an exercise we do in the workshop, where we just get people to take a big breath in through the mouth and feel the sensations into their own body. Feel how dry it is. Feel the more upper chest type of breath. And then we do the reverse, the big breath in through the nose, and people feel it straight away. They feel the difference in the breath. They feel the sensations from the one breath, and they feel their body move differently.
I do remember doing that in the workshop, and it is completely different. Like, if anyone's at home, literally do it right now. Breathe in through the mouth and then have a breath through the nose, and you can definitely tell the difference, can't you?
Yeah. So there are kind of 3 key differences that you'll notice straight away, or you should notice straight away. The way that your body feels. So, like I said, if you use your mouth to breathe, more often than not, you hold tension in the body, and more often you're not aware of it, but you will be using your body to breathe more than your diaphragm, and sometimes you'll hold that tension all the time. Then the breath that goes directly into your lungs, and it goes directly into your lungs if you breathe through your mouth, that would hold all of the toxins that are in the air or in the environment that you're in. So, I mean, obviously, if we're working with viruses at the moment in winter, or
the flu is going around.
The flu, apparently the flu is back.
The flu's
made a comeback. So if you're in areas where there are toxins in the air, and that can be anything, it can be smoke, it can be, wherever you are. Pollution. You're breathing it directly into your lungs, and there's no filter. And then I guess thirdly, the air is cold. So, what we want is nice, warm, moist air into our lungs. And if we breathe directly through our mouth, it goes straight into our lungs and it's cold, and you're more likely to feel a little bit unwell and get respiratory illness. Those would be sort of like the 3 things that you can feel, right? The temperature of the air, whether it's a little bit cloggy or yucky, and also that you're holding tension in your body when you do it. Yeah. Nasal breathing, or using our nose to breathe, which can feel really unnatural for a lot of people, particularly if they've learned over the years to breathe through their mouth, or if they've got some kind of blockage in their nose which makes it uncomfortable.
Yeah, I know, like a lot of footy players, broken noses and stuff like that would struggle with it.
Yeah, there's all sorts of reasons why nasal breathing is difficult for people. Habit is a big reason. We start to use our mouth for a lot of reasons, and then people will move towards mouth breathing habitually. But there are absolutely structural issues that people have, illnesses, a fear of not being able to get enough air in. So I'll let Dean talk about maybe some of the benefits of practicing breathing through your nose, or getting those airways open so that you can use your nose more in just day-to-day living.
Yeah, I try to sum it up quick. You get sick less.
Do I not?
You know, you don't. No, you did pick that up. You get sick less, you're less likely to get injured, and you're more likely to perform better, cognitively and physically. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of, and this is all evidence-based. Have you trained with the FMS? Have you heard with the functional movement system?
No,
it's
I
a
don't think
PT course I did a couple of years ago. Anyway, they did this and they found that people were dysfunctional breathers, scored lower in this FMS score, and then, people that scored lower were also more likely to be dysfunctional breathers.
Yeah, wow.
So there's association with the way we breathe and the way we move.
Mm. I think it's interesting what you spoke about with, obviously, the times that we're in, potential viruses and stuff like that. How does it actually filter that? Like, does it have a natural filter when you breathe through the nose? Is that sort of the case before it gets to the lungs, as you spoke about with the mouth breathing going straight directly to the lungs?
Do you want me to do it? I like doing this nose breathing stuff. So there's a couple of things. I'll let Dean talk about some of the gases that are produced in the body to make it a little bit more palatable for the lungs. But first things first, we've got these little hairs on the inside of our nose. They're called cilia.
Little for you, but
yeah. So I don't know. I'm getting older, but as you get older, the hairs get bigger. But the little hairs on the inside of your nose will collect any toxins in the air. So they're the first filter, really. Mm-hmm. And what happens, and it sounds a bit gross, and everybody's a bit grossed out by it, but what we want to do ideally is move those toxins through our digestive system rather than through our lungs, for obvious reasons. So the snot that you have and all of the fluids that you produce in your cavities in your face will move those through your digestive system. We swallow about 1.5 liters of snot and saliva and stuff each day.
Katie loves this.
I love this. I love it. Snot's good. And it moves it through our digestive system with all the dirt and crap that we don't need. And so it just goes through and it's perfectly fine. And that's where you want it to move through. In terms of a gas that's produced to increase immunity, nitric oxide is produced when we breathe nasally. Do you want to talk about that? Yeah,
nasal nitric oxide is produced, and so that has a secondary immune benefit. It's a natural antiseptic that's produced.
Oh, wow.
It's also a vasodilator, so it opens up our airways, making it easier to breathe. For people with blocked airways, a couple of breath holds increase nasal nitric oxide, and that helps open the airways. So there's a little nose unblocking exercise that we do to help improve sort of functional breathing and just get people breathing through the nose, because our bodies are pretty much use it or lose it.
Yeah. So if someone's not naturally a nose breather, they might find it difficult. They can do these exercises and help open that up. Yeah. And it's so interesting because obviously a lot of people quick to throw the mask on and stuff like that. And when we naturally have that filtration system, if you're properly breathing, which is quite interesting.
And it's just one other barrier or one other defense mechanism, but it's 100%. Really an easy one to utilize. It's free.
That people don't utilize,
doesn't clog up the oceans. So it's well worth investigating.
Well, for the people wearing the masks, it's actually really important because they're toxic, those masks. So it's really important when you've got a mask on to breathe nasally. So you're not breathing they're disposable masks. They're only meant to be worn for 20 minutes.
20 minutes, wow.
Yeah. Breathe nasally while you got that mask on.
Jeez.
Because you don't want that stuff going into your body.
I bought one sitting in the car for about 2 months.
Yeah. And of course snot will, your snot, your saliva, your moisture in the nose will warm the air. So once it gets into the lungs, ideally, if you're nasally breathing for most of the time, the air that you're breathing is a really high quality, the highest quality that you can get. And so that's what you want. You want to make sure that if you're using your nose to breathe, you're getting high quality air into the lungs, and more likely than not, you're using your diaphragm, which is the muscle that is designed to help you breathe. And breathing's beautiful because it's it's one of those things that we can control or will happen without us thinking about it.
Yep.
And so if we can move to a place where we're aware of it and we're aware how we're breathing, then eventually the nasal breathing will become more and more autonomous.
Yeah.
Yeah, breath awareness. Yeah, nose is for breathing, mouth is for kissing and talking.
I like it. Yeah. But eating too, maybe?
Yeah, eating, yeah.
What do you say, kissing and talking?
Yeah, the important stuff. Your favourite things.
Yeah.
Another thing that interests me is the way you can influence it, say, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system by the breath. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit for people at home? Because that's what I find most interesting about breath work, is that for someone who's in a hyped up state, they can take the slow breaths, bring themselves into a level state, for lack of better words, I guess. Do you want to elaborate on how that actually works and how people can maybe tap into that?
Yeah, cool. Well, Katie talked to it already, getting people with a little bit of breath awareness. And once you have a little bit of breath awareness, you might notice when you maybe lose your temper or get cut off in traffic that changes, and you maybe shift to mouth breathing or yelling.
Yeah.
And that posture changes.
Yeah,
and
the
those
posture
shoulders
changes.
get up and you get quite aggressive. So that's going into the fight or flight sort of nervous system, that response, which is not a bad thing. So stress has helped humans evolve for millions of years, and actually in the Wim Hof breathing and some of the breathing techniques we teach, we intentionally take people into a stress response.
Yeah, and you also incorporate ice baths and stuff as well. That's a stressor in itself. Yeah.
So these are hormetic stress stresses or hormesis, where we have a controlled dose of stress and the body responds positively to it. And then I guess taking people intentionally, or getting people to intentionally take themselves into a stress response, they learn to come in and out of it. So that sort of feeling is understanding, and that's what Wim says, feeling is understanding. And I guess we try, hopefully people might have did that before, where they went, took a big nasal breath and then did the mouth breath, and it's like, oh, hang on, I can feel that. And making that breath awareness connection that Katie talked about before, which the yogis have.
Yeah.
So Katie
what's happening
breathes
in the body though when you
beautifully naturally?
What's happening in the body when we breathe in certain ways to affect the nervous system, and which one we sit in, sympathetic or parasympathetic? Because you understand a little bit more about the cell transfers and the...
Yeah, I guess. So when we go into that fight or flight response, the blood vessels open up. So heart rate increases, pupils dilate. We're ready for that fight or flight, that human evolutionary response that we have. Now, if you're sitting in the car and this happens, it's not good, because you don't get to use that energy.
Energy, yeah.
And I guess potentially what I'm led to believe, or what I'm told, or what the study says, that it's not the response that's bad. We're getting stuck in there.
Yeah.
Or we're not being able to get back down into that
back out
parasympathetic nervous system.
Yep.
And the best way to do that for a lot of people is through breath work. And breath work is a type of meditation. Breath work stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, that opposite to the fight or flight response. And through slow nasal breathing, you're able to down-regulate the body, slow the heart rate down, slow the respiratory rate down, and potentially breathe a little bit less.
Is there any tip or breath work that you would recommend? I've heard of box breathing, where you go 4 seconds in, 4 second hold. Is there anything that you might have that would help you, put you in that parasympathetic state that people can use?
It's really simple. It's just a case of breathing slowly, lightly, and breathing out more than you're breathing in.
Yeah.
So, or equal measures. So you'll notice that, box breathing can actually be quite advanced and quite stressful for people if they're not comfortable with breathing nasally, because there is a retention in there. Yep. And we have to be really clear. For many of us that breathe all the time, it might feel like quite a simple practice, but for somebody that's been in their sympathetic nervous system and their fight or flight and they're feeling really anxious
so
already,
used to the shallow, frequent breaths.
And using shallow, frequent breaths all the time, moving to a box breath can actually be quite dramatic. So we would always start with just a simple in and out, really slow through the nose, often laying down, and it would simply be a case of breathing in for 4, breathing out for 6, breathing in for 4, breathing out for 6. And it's really important to tell people when they start breath work that they're in complete control. So if at any time they feel panicky or that they want to stop, then they can just come back to a natural breath. There's no pressure for people to take it to a place that they're not ready for. Anything to add?
Yeah, I've got it. There's a free YouTube video that we've got. I'll give you the link. You put it in the notes. You sort of breathe with Katie and I. The research shows sort of 5.5 to 6 breaths, but anywhere between 4 and 8 breaths a minute is considered slow breathing.
Yep.
And we like to get people laying down. Getting them laying down gets their posture nice.
Yeah.
Again, just puts that and takes gravity out of the diaphragm. So you can I like to get people touching their body. They can just feel their body moving. And if they're stressed and they're mind's wandering, maybe just laying down, closing their eyes, touching their body and breathing and focusing on a slow breath may be enough to shift state.
Yeah, just get yourself into that awareness of like present, focusing on that will take out obviously all the external factors that might put you in that space. I guess.
And if you and use guided breath tours, like Dean and I said, like we've got lots of options for people just to listen to us guiding them through the breath, just counting them in, counting them out, gives them something to focus on and takes them away from anything external.
Yeah, I know CC's like that. She loves to be like put into it.
Same. And, and most people, that's why instead of, maybe doing lunges by ourselves in a park, we go to the gym, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's a motivation, it's a commitment to ourselves. And that's why we see so much success with group breathing, because people want to come together to do it. And it's almost like a discipline, it gets people out of the house. It's very hard sometimes to focus on something that you find difficult by yourself. So, we want to give people as much support as we possibly can.
I will admit, I felt more comfortable doing Wim Hof breathing with people in the room rather than by myself. Yeah. I can just imagine me being on the floor and CC coming home and I'm just like, yeah. She's
imagine how awful it would be if I did gym stuff by myself. I'd be in a serious injured situation all the time without you two telling me I'm doing it wrong. Yeah, so slow breathing is really important. And I think to Dean's point that, what we don't see so much is people often don't know that they're in a stress response, right? Because we live in a society where adrenaline is high, we're moving quickly.
And I think for a lot of people it feels good for them too, to have that ready energy as well.
Addictive.
We're in a society which rewards productivity, being busy. We see it often when people say to you, "Oh, how are you?" You go, "I'm busy." And it's almost like a badge of honor. So taking time out for yourself and being able to lay down and relax and breathe slowly is considered a little indulgent, right? Especially if you've got families and things. But it's so important because the way that you are responding, or what we think people are doing is not responding but reacting to situations, whether that's with your family, whether that's with people at work. If you're in your stress response, the chances are that you're not operating with complete clarity and with calm. And so we just want people to be very conscious that you can just take that little pause between a reaction and a response, and breath work is a really good avenue towards that.
What's changed in the last couple of years, and Ryan mentioned it earlier, people are starting to gamify their Oura Ring results and their Whoop results. So they're starting to quantify and measure their sleep, and it's a little bit like some people are like, I've got to get up and check. Like Katie used to be like that. She goes, I don't know how I slept last night. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, I haven't looked. And can't you just ask your body and see how you slept? Like after a while, I can sort of fairly accurately guess what my Oura Ring score will be.
I'm consistently in the 90s.
This morning I was like 88 and 86, and I was like 92 and 84. So I was like, it's a couple out each side.
Yeah.
This is just a big promotion for the Oura Ring.
Get down there, guys.
We're not sponsored by Oura, but we'd like to be. Yeah.
No, it is a good tool. It is a good tool. Like obviously everyone can get overexcited with the whole tracking and stuff like that, but it is quite interesting, and I play around with trying to get my REM sleep up, trying to get my deep sleep up. It is quite interesting to pull it apart a little bit.
It does, and it tracks your respiratory rate at night time, and and ours doesn't differ too much from night to night. But I think what we want, what's really great about it is it's putting it on the map.
Yeah,
it's making people more aware of it, and that's what we love. I think the last few years we've seen more and more people come to breathing techniques. And what Dean and I like to do, I mean, we've just been away for the weekend at a festival that featured heavily on breath work, and it was transformational breath work, and it was, often breathing techniques that might feel a little daunting for your average mum and dad or your average, person. But and that's not what we do all the time. What we try and do is demonstrate to people a little bit about how they can affect just the way they feel, their mood, their performance, just by practicing nasal breathing, just breathing through their nose more and more. And then you can start trying on all these different techniques to see how you can influence the way you feel. But I think to Dean's point, we just want to make sure that people understand how exactly they feel when they breathe, and in certain ways. Being able to take people to, I mean, you were talking about moving people in and out of their sympathetic and parasympathetic. even just using one nostril over the other. So if you're feeling a little flat and you need a bit of energy, if you just simply breathe in and out through your right nostril, then energetically you should feel a little bit of a lift because you're activating certain parts of your brain and certain parts of your body. If you're feeling like you're really hyped up and you want to just block your right nostril and just breathe slowly in and out through your left, then that will immediately take you into a more of a calm state. Now, a lot of people wouldn't even know that that was a tool that they could use, but you can absolutely do that. To Dean's point, if you're feeling a little bit blocked up before you go for a run in the morning because it's cold, then by holding your nose and on an exhale breath for a period of time, if you do that 5 or 6 times, maybe moving your head or your body around, then you'll be able to release nitric oxide and you'll feel this popping and this opening of the airways. It's just a little tool to help you breathe more effectively. Yeah,
little tools, big changes.
Yeah, I really like that. And obviously you'll send some links through and I'll put these in the show notes for the guys if they want to look after it. Back to sleep. I'm really interested in like how obviously I was able to sleep better in those 2 nights where I did the taping of the mouth. How does this help? So obviously we've got a lot of people we know about sleep apnea and stuff like that, and snoring can obviously affect people's sleep. How in what way does nasal breathing help that?
Yeah, so nasal breathing, and we talked to it earlier, is linked to the parasympathetic nervous system. So when you start mouth breathing at night, again, it's not like you're sort of in fight or flight, but it slightly takes you out of deep sleep into a lighter stage of sleep. And there's a potential to get up, go to the toilet and disturb your sleep.
Yeah.
When you're in deep sleep, linked to nasal breathing, it releases an antidiuretic. So you're less likely to go to the toilet. So we quite commonly hear people getting up, going to the toilet 2 or 3 times a night. They start mouth taping, that decreases, and sometimes they get through the night, and it's a huge win for some people.
Yeah. Oh, that's very interesting. It's like antidiuretic. That's interesting.
and also just in terms of, people that have great success nasally breathing during the day because they become more conscious and they get really excited about nose breathing. At nighttime, sometimes, obviously, because you're not aware, your mouth can just fall open, and that can be due to a very heavy masculine jaw. But like it can be anything really because you're relaxed, and so again, and this is what causes things like snoring and sleep apnea. And of course, Dean was saying earlier on that he wasn't aware how badly he was sleeping, but he was waking himself up, making sort of. Obviously, there was some sort of like tongue action happening in the back of his mouth, which is blocking his airways. There were all sorts of things that were happening to him at night. And when he started mouth taping and using his nose to breathe primarily, they were happening less and less.
Well, I was aware because I was feeling really sluggish.
So
I was feeling really flat, had no energy, wasn't training, but I never made the connection that it was mouth breathing during sleep. And that's how I started doing the Wim Hof method, because I was just... had nothing. I had no oomph.
Woke up in the morning just for nothing.
Nothing. And then I started doing Wim Hof and I was like, and I was like, whoa, I feel good. And then, I did that every day for years.
Yeah.
Then I started mouth taping at night and I didn't feel the need to get up and
you just woke up with
Wim
energy
Hof anymore. Now we do it socially. We do it with friends at least once a week and jump in the sauna or the ice bath. But it's not that I have to do Wim Hof every day.
Yeah, which is amazing. And a lot of people obviously suffer from a lot poor energy, poor sleep. And it could be just something as simple as potentially just taping the mouth, trying to get the nasal breathing. I know people kind of freak out, like think that you're like duct taping the mouth. But there's a special tape and you put some in
we'll
for
put
me
some
today.
links.
Put some links.
There's videos where I sort of talk about it and break it down a little bit more on Instagram and maybe YouTube. But there was a study, again, I talked about this in the workshop, 153 people that had heart attacks in America that survived. Cardiovascular disease is the biggest killer worldwide. All these people were dysfunctional breathers.
Yeah, wow.
So it's just adding an extra load of stress onto the body.
That in itself is enough for surely someone to even give it a crack if they're not doing it already.
Honestly, like we have complete joy in talking about mouth tape because we've never, ever heard anybody that's tried mouth taping that hasn't seen some kind of success.
Some kind of benefit, yeah.
You know, like it's literally 100%. Like you can't get worse with mouth taping. Like you can only
it's true.
improve.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of people don't think. Yeah, a lot of people don't think they need it because they don't know they're feeling sluggish, or they don't because we live in a society where it becomes being hungover or being a bit tired is normal. Like it's recognised as being absolutely how everybody feels. So it's only when you start making these little changes and you feel like you've got a little bit of a boost of energy, and it doesn't happen to everybody, but for some people they'll feel a little boost of energy and go, wow, I didn't know that I wasn't feeling great before, and now I'm having improved sleep.
Well, yeah, the people that are possibly worthwhile to investigate mouth taping are people that were waking up like me, feeling super sluggish in the morning, people getting up, going to the toilet, people that just struggle in the morning, maybe need a coffee or something straight away. These are the people that are likely to be mouth breathing at night because they're not getting that recovery.
You can still have coffee, it's fine.
You still have a coffee.
You go to yoga and then have a coffee.
Okay, so moving on to exercise now. What is your thoughts on exercise? Should there be mouth breathing involved? Should there be nasal breathing? Obviously, we want to encourage as much nasal breathing as possible, but is there special times?
Who is it for? Or is it for a yogi? Is it for
more in the high intense range? So pretty heavy weight training type of style, maybe even a little bit of cardio as well.
Yeah. So working with pro athletes, I worked with professional rugby league team this year.
Nice.
There is mouth breathing needed to hit the top gear. Mm-hmm. Now, I didn't want to put pressure on these guys because some of them have trouble breathing through their nose. So I didn't want to add more stress onto their life by telling them they had to breathe through their nose. Only I had 4 sessions to work with them.
Yep.
But also wanted to offer the benefits of nasal breathing. So, yeah, to some degree, if we can get them nasal breathing to sort of 85, 90% of their VO2 max, which the studies show all people are able to do, or a lot of people are able to do, then it gives them a top gear for mouth breathing. Yeah,
yes, it gives them that little bit extra when they need to go for it.
A little bit of a turbo.
Also for athletes, potentially footy players, if they can, if they're trying to score a try down the sideline, they mouth breathe, they hit top gear, but afterwards they want to recover. And the best way to recover is
convert the try.
Well, yeah, convert the try. And again, we've worked with goal kickers.
Yeah, to slow it down.
After, they've been to a workshop in the morning and implemented the techniques that afternoon and seen results.
Yeah, seen results.
And we've got feedback like that. So
I remember when I was like towards the end of my career, like sort of 2017, 18, 19, breath work was starting to come in after sessions. Now, they spoke about the ability to obviously get out of the sympathetic, get into the parasympathetic to be able to recover, obviously, for not only just being able to get out of that state, but also for physical benefits as well, being able to relax the body. What about like adrenaline? Do you feel like there's adrenaline leaks if you're not doing breath work after it?
Well, I guess it's people after a game, and you would know, pro athletes, they're taking caffeine and stuff to pump themselves up.
Yeah.
They need to switch off. This is, I've spoke to Olympians, they get so high
100%.
up,
yeah.
And they can't sleep.
Yeah. Insomnia. I'll be up to like 3 in the morning.
And, if you pump yourself up, at the semi-final for the Olympics and the finals the next day, you need to down-regulate sleep, get some quality sleep so you can perform at your best. Like it's one chance every 4 years for those guys.
Yeah. And that's one of the main benefits of like breathing that style after training is to just obviously calm the sympathetic down and get into that parasympathetic so you're able to recover. And
just be comfortable with transitioning.
Yeah.
I think, and again, it's just an awareness, right? If you know that you're hyped, you can bring yourself down. But if you don't know and you stay at that level all the time, and it can be athletes, it can be, mum screaming at kids, or it could be anything, but you need to be able to recognise that and then be able just to take it down a notch. And that's why the techniques that take you into your stress response deliberately are so valuable, because even though that's not how we want people to breathe all the time, what it allows people to do is feel that excitement, that hype, that pump, and then feel the joy of coming away from it.
Yeah, how they can bring themselves out.
And that's so valuable, because people don't know that they have that level of control. They don't know that they have that ability, that power within themselves to actually move, transition between the two.
Yeah.
And that's what we like.
Many neuroscientists will say breathwork is the best way to tap into the parasympathetic nervous system. So,
often we say to people all the time, like we're all in the wellness industry, and we say to people, listen to your body, but they don't know what to hear. They don't know.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
right?
hear that, listen to your body, but what am I listening for?
Right. Yeah. Does this feel right? Does this feel right? So these are really good methods and techniques to show people that they can feel different ways simply by moving or breathing differently.
Yeah.
Recently, I set a little challenge for myself to swim 100 metres underwater.
Yep.
And
it's not really a little challenge for most of us, quite a big one.
Anyway, for me, I was already able to swim about 75 metres underwater, so it was another 20-30% more than my PB. So reasonable, I believed. And after these sessions, I realised I had to really tap in and focus on the feelings and slow that breath down and almost get into a meditative state. And the day that I was able to do that, like really relax and tap into that, was the day I swam the 100 metres underwater. And going through that process, it really taught me even more about what I'm already preaching. And it was a really, really insightful for me.
It's interesting how much it can affect. Like, obviously they talk about the relaxing part, but doing that is obviously quite strenuous. And it's interesting how it can improve that so much, so drastically. Just wanted to touch on the ice bath side of it. And you spoke about before, what was the term that you used for it? The
Hormesis?
Hormesis, yep. So like the stress response. Just curious of how people should maybe implement that and sort of what benefits they can get from those stress exposure.
You want me to answer this one, Katie, or you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you would know from footy that cold therapy and ice baths have been traditionally used for people to make their muscles feel better after exercise. Yeah, but what we've been teaching people is how to utilize cold therapy in a more in a more beneficial way.
Yeah, there's a couple of ways to look at it. Humans have evolved going in and out of cold for millions of years, and in the last 20, 30 years, people aren't getting cold anymore. There's electric blankets and heaters. So I like to sort of make the analogy similar to intermittent fasting and even being barefoot as opposed to wearing fancy shoes, sometimes making life a little bit harder. We see really positive responses in people. Yeah. Intermittent fasting's huge. Cold showers, all this stuff's not new, but it's really taking off again. Yep. And the ice bath, what we love about it empowers people to do stuff that potentially that they didn't think they could do. And then it empowers them to do more maybe health related stuff, simple stuff like going for a walk with their partner, going to yoga, meditating, eating healthy whole foods.
I think the benefits of cold therapy, there are obviously physical benefits, the anti-inflammatory things. Is that physical or physiological? Good question. Okay. All right.
Not a good question at all.
Okay. So you've got like the physical benefits of it, but what we see more than anything is people thinking that they can't do something and then doing it, then feeling absolutely elated that they've achieved something and feeling great and feeling alive and actually, again, feeling in their body the positive benefits of it. And like anything else that we do regularly, it's a practice. So the first time people do it, they're like, whoa, okay, that was hectic, but I could do it, even if it was for a short period of time. And then we see people coming back and say, I want to do that again just to, because I felt the benefits of it, but I want to, see if I feel a little better with it. And like anything, we see that the more people do it, the more people do it. And it's, we now hold sort of regular events where people can just come again, because it's not something you want to do by yourself at home always, just jump in the ice.
And it's kind of hard to do.
And it is, there are some logistics involved. So
you've got about 7 ice makers at your house, so it makes it easier.
So we invite people around and they can just come and get in the ice with friends and meet other people. And often now we see people, our biggest struggle is getting people out the bloody ice now. That's the hardest part.
Well, you said something really important before. Our physiology, our body is connected to our psychology, our mind. And one of the benefits of the anti-inflammatory benefits is mental health. So a lot of mental health can be linked to sort of inflammation of the brain. So we get some people really gravitate hard towards those ice baths. They're addicted to it.
Yeah.
And their anxiety disappears.
Yeah, anxious people seem to really respond well to it. And, and we, like kids are great doing it, like getting them involved in these types of practices, which again are, technically very low cost compared to anything else that you can implement. We see huge improvement in people. It's important to note that the way that you breathe in the ice is also very important. Yeah,
it's funny. Ties everything back to where we started, functional breathing.
It's funny how you mentioned that, because obviously we did the breath work at the start when we did the Power Breath workshop, and it was going well. Breathed through the nose, did the Wim Hof, all good. Yep, meditation, great. Jumped in the ice bath straight away. In through the nose, but out through the mouth, like straight away. And then you pointed it out, and I was like, holy crap, that was just like an automatic like switch for me. If anything was like stressful, to go back to that.
We do see four-letter words flying out of some people's mouths. So you were doing far better than most.
Yeah, but it's interesting how you just fall back into that habit, fall back into that pattern.
Yeah, and when we say to people, people can do it, right? But they just don't know.
It took me 10 seconds and I was in through the nose, out through the nose.
But you don't know what you don't know. And so, you'll have an experience, your body responds in a certain way, and you kind of just go with it. And, even to tie it back to Dean's lifeguarding experience, when people panic in the ocean, their body responds in a certain way. They go with that, but it's not necessarily the most optimal way for them to behave.
It's actually counterintuitive. It's the worst thing that they could possibly do.
Yeah.
Panic, isn't it?
Panic. When they're in a rip close to shore, body says, get back to shore, get back to safety, which seems right, but it's actually not. They need to relax, because if they're going to expend all their energy and potentially drown and die, and it happens.
Yeah. And that's kind of like what you sort of get from ice baths as well. Like that was, for me, first thing I want to do is do those ones, but it's sort of counterintuitive, the same as you talk about when you just need that time to relax into it and just use the benefits of it.
And that's why the people that come to our workshops,
we should be charging more. Or just charge hundreds of dollars.
Yeah. But we get a huge range of people that come to our workshops, right? Like, we're so lucky because Dean, has a bit of a profile working with athletes and high performers. We see a lot of those guys, big wave surfers.
Yeah, there was a few big wave surfers.
Yeah, we had a few big wave surfers in the workshop that you were in, that have had experiences, life and death experiences in the ocean, and were looking for ways to control that anxiety. We'll also have people that have just been relying on GPs and pharmaceuticals to get them through the day, the month, the year, and are looking for an alternative because it's weighing down on them, and they're feeling like they're not optimally performing.
Well, mental health is the real epidemic.
And then we just see people that are super curious about it, because it's been we're so lucky that we've had so many journalists and people like Wim and Patrick that have put this type of health awareness on the map, and people that are more curious and want to learn more. And we're lucky that we live in a society now where people are looking for ways naturally to help themselves, which is great, through food or through exercise or through breathing. So, the beauty of breathwork is it's available to everybody and it has benefits for everybody. And so it doesn't matter whether you are doing any exercise at all, or if you're a high performer. We welcome people to come. We see a lot of like much older people, much younger people, everybody, asthmatics that have been
even just the day that I was there, the diversity of people was huge.
Yeah, and we'll touch and obviously when you come to our 3-hour workshop, we'll talk a lot more about oxygen and carbon dioxide and all of those scientific things that will help you if you want to understand on a deeper level. Yeah.
Awesome, guys. We're coming up to 45 minutes now. I'd actually love to just carry on and keep talking, but we do try to cap these at 45 minutes. I really, really appreciate you guys for coming in. Please let people know where they can find you on your socials and stuff like that. Give yourself a shout out so people can get to
Power
see?
of the Breath, on Instagram. I think there's a Facebook page. Dino Gladstone's my other Instagram page. Website dinogladstone.com. And
I'm the assistant, the glamorous assistant. But you can see on the Yoga Pod Sydney not doing very much. But Power of the Breath is where all our breathwork stuff is.
Yep.
But yeah, if you're interested in yoga, hit me up. I know my stuff.
Should give Katie a quick shout out, because when we started teaching together, I didn't actually realise the magic she brought to the room. So what Katie does, she makes people feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And this engages their other cranial nerves. A lot of people talk about the vagus nerve. So once Katie gets people feeling comfortable, this enables a better experience. So it's really
sort of drops the
important. So
walls
I never actually realised the science behind the polyvagal theory and what she was actually doing by touching people.
Yeah.
So,
that's
generously.
I actually wanted to get you guys on together because you do feed well off each other. Like even when I noticed there, obviously you're quite scientific and quite logical, and then you have that real nice approach where you're just like, hey guys.
I just clarify what he's trying to say.
But it is nice. It works well with each other. And
teamwork makes the dream work.
That's it. 100% teamwork makes the dream work. As I said, I'll leave all the links down below, guys. But thanks for tuning in, and thank you so much, guys, for coming out.
Thanks for having us, Ryan. Thanks for being my favourite personal trainer.
Anytime. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Till next time.
Bye.